Chapter 5. Time marches on, waiting for no one, not even the Bograts. With time comes change, and so it was perhaps inevitable that, amongst other things, the former reluctance to plan sets would diminish. The 1986-87 Christmas sessions in Norwich, where by now several Bograts were based, did enable some new songs to be put together with the assistance of kindred spirits Toby, Gnome and Convoy Pete. These included the aforementioned No Venue, packed with historical commentary, and Ant-Attack, another classic Bogsong in the inimitable style of Mad Mike de Had. In retrospect then, the lack of gigs was less a setback than an opportunity to take stock and allow the gestation of new inspiration. Time, as usual, marched on. One of the achievements for which the Bograts are rightly acclaimed is the practice of creative incompetence, a skill that the band really made their forte. With the previously mooted mega gig no longer on the cards for one reason or another, this unique form of creativity found its most eloquent expression in August 1987 with the making of Bog Life, a video documentary that set out to give an insight into what makes Bernie and the Burning Bograts tick. No doubt under the influence of a favourable alignment of the planets, the idea for the so-called Bogumentary was dreamed up, planned and carried out in the space of one short week. The film was shot with the sensitive camera work of Dave from Oxford and Ali Dorr from Norwich, and the halcyon environment of St Julian's and nearby Sevenoaks formed an inspired setting. Some 3 hours of recordings were carefully honed to a 1.5 hour long end product, which managed to capture much of the ups and downs, successes and failures, personalities and events of significance to the band. The recording of the stunning accompanying soundtrack was achieved with the skilled assistance of sound technician Mark on a 4-track recorder acquired from a dodgy local geezer in dramatic circumstances documented in the film. Mind-blowing, a laugh and a half, unique and crazy, such eulogies trip lightly off the lips of those who take the trouble to view the film. Indeed, Bog Life was destined to become a seemingly bottomless pit of often witty, occasionally witless, but always eminently quotable phrases. Yet suffering from collective creative exhaustion after an intense week of artistic fun and games, the subtitle picked for the film and the title of the accompanying soundtrack album, Flogging a Dead Rat, reflected a feeling that maybe this was an appropriate moment to wind up a distinguished career. But this was by no means the end of the Bograts story. Fate decreed that the Bograts were not to go out without a proper bang. By hook or by crook, and thanks in no small part to the diligent organisational skills of Mr. Glover, the band were to tread the boards once again, at the Village Hall in Underriver, Kent, the following January. Saturday, January the 23rd, 1988, deserves to go down in history as one of the most excruciatingly memorable dates in the annals of 20th century music. 2 support bands, Murmur Troupe and the intriguingly named Norman Knobcheese and the Fanny Batter Five, warmed up the crowd with classy sets. Then Bernie and the Burning Bograts took to the stage. Some 30 minutes later, with anticipation having reached a bored crescendo, the opening bars of Out of Order filled the air. The Bograts were go. Holding fast to tradition, the Bograts once again resolutely ignored conventional parameters of musicology as they worked their way through a set packed with classic numbers that, in some parallel universe, have surely achieved the hit status they deserve. Those who were there were in no doubt as to the quality of what they were experiencing. Those who weren't still have the opportunity to reflect on the events of that fated evening, as the gig was controversially captured on film for posterity. Thanks guys. Despite the music, a great time was had by all, with the possible exception of those who might have felt the edge taken off things by an unfathomable desire for structuredness in songwriting and performance. This was a burden that bore down on one band member in particular, guitarist and vocalist Jan Glover, as heavily and as plentifully as it was absent in the rest of the band. But despite that, and now safely endowed with large quantities of rose-tinted hindsight, even the most hard-bitten critic would surely agree. It was truly a night to remember. Despite the music, a great time was had by all, with the possible exception of those who might have felt the edge taken off things by an unfathomable desire for structuredness in songwriting and performance. This was a burden that bore down on one band member in particular, guitarist and vocalist Jan Glover, as heavily and as plentifully as it was absent in the rest of the band. But despite that, and now safely endowed with large quantities of rose-tinted hindsight, even the most hard-bitten critic would surely agree. It was truly a night to remember.